Today's lesson is titled Image Recording Platforms, Types of Cameras. How many of you like taking pictures? You? Selfies. Or you like taking pictures of other stuff? There's so much out there that we can take pictures of, right? We have beautiful sunsets in Puerto Rico. We have beautiful full moons in our sky. We have a beautiful nature that is all around us. We have our relatives, family members. There's so many things that we can photograph instead of ourselves. So all of you will be taking pictures because very soon you're going to have a project where you're going to be applying some knowledge that I'll be sharing with you, and the way that you'll be showing me and demonstrating that you learn what I'm teaching you is by taking a picture. So that's one of the things we're going to be doing very soon. How soon? Probably as early as next week. You guys will have a project where you'll be taking pictures and sending them to me, okay? So that's why it's important that you guys pay attention. If you have any question, feel free to interrupt and ask. I'll be more than glad to answer your questions if I can. All right. So different types of cameras. Usually when you think about a job or a profession, there are tools that are usually associated with that profession. If you think about a soldier, what comes to your mind is, well, okay, rifle, soldier, rifle. If you think in a painter, then you'll be thinking brushes because that's what they use to paint. If you think about a writer, or you're thinking, "Whoa, this person probably uses a laptop or a piece of pen and paper." When you think in a filmmaker, what comes to your mind? Exactly, a camera, a camera. So there are tools that are associated with different jobs. And when you think about filmmaking, the tool in filmmaking is the camera, because the camera is the filmmaker's tool supreme. As you already saw in the last lesson, where we were talking a little bit about the history of cinematography, you will understand that the development of the camera is what made cinematography possible. Without the camera, there could be no cinematography. It would be impossible. And since it is so vital to cinematography, it stands to reason that it will be indispensable for you to master a camera if you want to engage filmmaking. You have to know how to use a camera. And most of your experience of using cameras have to do with your cell phone. But there are cameras that are not in your cell phone. Okay, we're going to talk about all types of camera. Today, let's give you an introduction to the camera. Basically, when you think about cameras, they can be split into two areas. You have the cameras that use film, and you have the cameras that are digital. Which one is older? Well, clearly the film camera is older. Do not make the mistake of thinking that because something is older and something is newer, newer is better. That is not true. Sometimes newer is better. Sometimes. Sometimes older is better. Sometimes there's no difference between one or the other. Neither is better. So it's important that when you look at these cameras, don't look at digital and think, oh, it has to be better. They both offer advantages over each other. That's why to this day, there are people that still use film cameras. It's not because they are old fashioned, it's not because they're old people. Certainly not. That is not the case. Many of the movies that are made today by very famous directors are made with film cameras. An example, this week they released a movie called Tenet by one of the greatest directors that is alive today, Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan films all his movies in film. He does not like digital, even though digital offers some advantages. But he sees other advantages in using film. So it's important that we do not mistake older for worse and newer for best. Is that clear, guys? I know that you've been taught otherwise, but I'm teaching you differently today. Is that cool? Is that understood? Anyone? Okay. Let's begin with the film camera. Why are we beginning with the film camera? Because it's the oldest one. Now, older cameras look nothing like that. If you're buying a film camera today, nowadays, you go to Walmart or you go to a store that might be selling photographic equipment and you want a film camera, it might look something like that, probably. Uh, and the reason why we're beginning with film cameras is because it all started with film cameras during the early days of photography. Celluloid film was the medium that was used to record the image. You know that in the last lesson we spoke about something called celluloid, and celluloid is a piece of plastic, a hard, dark plastic. And on one side, they would coat it with an emulsion, like a syrupy kind of like substance made of silver halide crystals. And what that did was made that area of the surface of the celluloid more sensitive to light. The more of the emulsion, the more sensitive to light. And what does sensitivity to light have to do with anything? Well, it makes for a better exposure. The more emulsion, the higher the ISO, the more sensitivity to light. That means that you could probably use it to shoot pictures at nighttime when you have low light conditions. But that had nothing to do with the camera, but with the film itself. So, in order for you to take pictures in low light conditions, you would have to buy film specially designed to do that. And of course, the higher the ISO, the more expensive the film. Well, back then, back in the day, that's what they used to record. You would put it a cylinder that had the celluloid film rolled inside. You would be very careful not to expose it to light because if you expose it to light, you would damage it, and then it was no good. And then you would like move the film after each picture to not have double exposure. Once you were done, you would carefully take it out, making sure that no light was hitting it. You would put it inside the aluminum foil bag in which it came. You would take it to a laboratory to be for it to be developed. Like in Walmart, I'm not sure if they still have it, but they used to have a lab where you would take like your film roll, and they would like have a lab, and in the lab they would go through a chemical process that involved the use of acids to develop your pictures. In the early days, it would take weeks, then it would take days, then it would take like hours. And then it would take like minutes. Like you would take the roll and they would take the wait there. We'll be back in a minute. And then here are the pictures, right? And that's the way it used to be. But we don't have that anymore because almost 99% of people use the other type of camera that is not film cameras. And you get the image instantaneously. And if you want a picture, you connect your camera to or the SD card to a printer and print the picture out. That's how it's done today, which is very convenient, right? Um, but film has its other conveniences, right? Which we'll be exploring later, not today. Why are these kind of cameras disappearing? They exist, but they're disappearing because there's not much demand for them. You would not see amateurs being the bulk of the customers that buy this type of cameras, mostly professional photographers that use this type of camera. Back in the 1970s, they started marketing something called the instant camera or the Polaroid camera. The Polaroid company was the one that made this type of camera very popular. And the big deal about it was that you would get an instantaneous picture. You wouldn't have to take the roll of film to a lab to have it developed and wait days. You would have it like right there. And you would just like take the picture and it would come out. It was like a card. You would like ventilate it a little bit to hurry up the process. And in a few seconds, you will have the picture. The problem with these pictures was that quality wise, they were not the best. They were not very good. And as far as their durability, how long would they last? These were like the worst pictures ever as far as durability. Um, I don't think they will last years. Those that do last years, the colors fade quickly. They get stained because of the acids that they have, and also they will get some kind of mildew if you store them in a dark and humid place. They will get mildew and be damaged. So they were not very good. I thought they had disappeared until a couple of years ago when some students, especially two girls, told me, "No, we have those," and they're like a toy, basically, like curiosity. They would take like pictures that were very small, and I don't know if any of you has that type of camera. Anyone here? But that's like a toy, basically. I mean, she didn't take like real pictures with it, right? Like they were like super small. Okay. They're very small. Back then, they were like normal size, but the quality was horrible. So they came back. They're like a fad right now. They're like fashionable because they're probably fun, but they're not for serious photography or serious filmmaking. Then, around 20 years ago, the point and shoot camera became available. These were cameras that had a reasonable quality. They were also digital. Remember that all the cameras that we're seeing now from now on are digital. The other two were film. This one is digital. And basically, they have like a fixed lens. The lens would pop out when you pressed on, and you had like very little control of the focus. You would like have to either get physically closer or farther away from your subject, and you would take pictures with it, and they would be recorded on a sensor, and that sensor would send the image to an SD card. You know what an SD card is? Where you record digital media today. That's what we use today to record, to store digital media. It's like a small plastic strip that has um, circuits. It's a circuit board inside, and we can stick that into our computers or laptops and whatnot. And it's a storage device. You can use it to store anything, but they're perfect for cameras today. So you would use that, and you would pop in some AA batteries and snap away. The quality was not bad. But they're not very popular too. They still exist, but they're not a big deal like they used to be like 20, 15, 10 years ago. Maybe there's one in your house. The DSLR camera, the type of camera that if we were in the classroom, I would be putting it in your hands right now. Unfortunately, we're not in the classroom and there's no way I can do it. But we have to talk about DSLRs because today they are the most used by professional photographers. We have two in the classroom. DSLR stands for Digital Single Lens Reflex. And basically, what they have is they have something called a pentaprism inside, which is like a mirror chamber where light bounces into the viewfinder and you get your image that way. They are a little bit on the heavy side, they're a bit large, and they're very good. They take excellent pictures, very good pictures. And the funny thing about them is that they were designed to take picture, but you can also take video with them. Did you hear that? You can take video, and they take video very good too. Not as good as a cine camera, but very good. This is the tool that we use. We have shot many movies and videos with DSLRs, and it would be good for you to get familiarized with this type of camera because when we go back to throw it, I'll be putting it in your hands. The most popular brand names in DSLRs are Fuji, Pentax, Sigma, Canon, also, and they're very good. They can even record into 4K. We don't have a 4K one. The maximum one I have records 1080p, but it's very good. It's my baby. And the last one we bought cost us like $1,200. These cameras have interchangeable lenses. What that means is depending on the type of shot that you want, you can remove the lens and put on another one. You can put a different lens. So that's one of the beautiful things about DSLRs. There is something called the bridge camera. The bridge camera, some of my students have purchased them because they are cheaper than DSLRs. They are basically like a DSLR because they also have a pentaprism, but they have a fixed lens. That means that you cannot remove the lens and exchange it with another one. It's like a point and shoot, combined with a DSLR. That's why it's called bridge. It's like bridges both cameras. So if you want to get like serious about photography and you want to have your first camera, this would not be a bad first camera. Many of my students that have decided to have cameras, this was the first camera they had. In the case of some of them, the only camera they had, but it gets the job done. It's not a bad thing to have. And as I said, they are reasonably priced. They are very inexpensive. This is a medium format camera. It's used a lot in the world of fashion modeling, like on catwalks and stuff like that. I've never actually seen one of this in my life. They are a bit larger and heavy. They're not very popular. They're much heavier than a DSLR camera. I've never seen one. I'm just letting you know they exist, right? The mirrorless camera. Mirrorless camera has been around for the last 10 years, and it's displacing the DSLR. It's taking over their territory. Why? Because they take pictures as beautifully, if not better, than a DSLR. And they're not as heavy or large as one because they don't have a pentaprism. They found a way to get rid of it, and it works. The famous mirrorless cameras are like Sony. Um, Canon has some of them, but they're not that famous in this type of camera, even though they have some. Fuji, Pentax, Blackmagic also has some beautiful mirrorless camera. They're smaller. They're a little bit more expensive than your typical DSLR. And I was about to buy one very recently and did not have the opportunity. But if I were going to purchase between a DSLR and a mirrorless camera, I would go with a mirrorless one. There are some that are on the cheaper side, and they offer some advantages over DSLRs. So we got mirrorless cameras. We also have digital cine cameras, and we're going to be talking about cine cameras in the next lesson. Because the cine camera, all the cameras that I mentioned so far are cameras that you can use in photography and still photography. You can take pictures, you can take photographs of them. This one only records movies. You cannot take a picture with this. They are dedicated exclusively for filmmaking, and this is the type of camera that is used in the industry. The movies that you see in the theater, the movies that you see on TV are shot with this type of camera. The Ursa Mini Pro by Blackmagic, or the the C100 Mark II by Canon, and Sony's PXW Z150 are examples. They are, of course, larger. They are very expensive. If I was going to buy a cheap cine camera, usually you have to buy everything separately, like the lens, a monitor, all those things. I don't think we could get one for less than $5,000 or $6,000. They usually run much higher than that. We're talking your typical cine camera can cost you anywhere from 45 a new one $45,000 to $65,000 would be reasonable. There are more expensive cameras than that, much more expensive cameras. If any of you want to donate one of these cameras to Frobel, be my guest, okay? A smartphone. This is the one that you probably use to take camera. This is the one that you will probably be using the most in this course. How good are they? Well, the older ones are not the best. However, the new cameras that are coming out now, the new phone cameras, like from the iPhone 11 and the iPhone 12, which are $1,000 phones, they are very expensive. And the Samsung Galaxy 10 and the 20, those are even more expensive than the iPhones. And the Pixel 3 and 4 by Google, they're very expensive cameras too. All of them are over $1,000, and they have very good cameras. Are they as good as a DSLR? Maybe. Are they as good as a cine camera? No way, Jose. Will they get there? Who knows? In the next 5 to 10 years, probably yes. Yes, what's the question? So we're going to be using phones or tablets to shoot movies. The action cameras like the GoPro are fantastic. If you have one, I recommend you use it. We shot a movie under a pool in the water, under a swimming pool, and we used a GoPro, and the footage was awesome. And then you have the 360-degree camera. I'm just telling you that it exists, but you don't use this to make movies, okay? 360 degrees is like all around you. Like when you go to Epcot Center and you go to the Chinese Pavilion, like the movie's all around you. I mean, nobody watches movie that way, right? So we don't need it. But I'm just letting you know that they use this type of camera. Some people are pretty crazy out there and they want to make movies with that. So, I mean, more power to them, right? But it's basically something that is used like for security cameras.